Hello, everybody. My name is Ratnos, and welcome to This Week in Mythic Plus. This week's affixes are Tyrannical, Sanguine, Explosive, and of course, Thundering. This is not a particularly good week for pushing keys. It's also not a particularly good week for pugging keys, but it's not unplayable by any stretch. It's a pretty high effort, high annoying week. And the way that Sanguine and Explosive work is that they end up tacking on more time and more lethality as you start pulling multiple packs together, which means that unless you're really firing on all cylinders, you're pretty likely to get in the spot where you're doing like a you try and add an extra pack to pull, and it ends up making you much more likely to wipe or costing you a bunch of time on Sanguine healing anyways, and just not being worth it. But then the fact that it's tyrannical instead of fortified means that if you're actually pushing keys at a level where the timer starts to matter, you're going to have issues because you can't afford to just fight one pack at a time because the bosses take so long because it's tyrannical. So it's kind of a nasty 1-2 punch this week. That means that for pushing high keys, it's a very high coordination week where you really want to make sure you have Nox ready for the Sanguine. You want to make sure you have somebody good at doing explosives that's going to have it handled. Usually in high key groups, that's going to end up being the healer. But in pugging keys, by contrast, you instead have the challenges of Sanguine and Explosive in pugs, which are a pretty different type of challenge than they are in high keys. There, it's really just anybody that can help with either should. Tanks in particular have a lot of the responsibility with Sanguine. It's kind of just unavoidable. But the explosive responsibility, it's pretty much just if you're in a pug, by far the best thing you can do to help your pug win is going to be just focus on making sure that explosives are not going off. Because of that, I figured it would be good to talk a little bit about how explosives work. I think I've done this in a few of these videos before, but talking just a little bit about the exact way that explosives spawn. Because a lot of people don't know this, but mobs can't spawn explosives while they are stunned, which means that if you pull a pack and then you send an AoE stun on it, and then the mobs come out of the AoE stun, you will often get a wave of 4 or 5 explosives all queued up that all spawn at once as soon as that CC ends. So for that reason, you want to make sure that you are careful and you're looking to hunt down explosives, particularly at that kind of spot. Another thing that this week is really nasty with is casters or archers in general. Both Sanguine and Explosive interact really negatively with archers and casters, right? If you have a caster or an archer that's outside of the pack, then the explosives are going to be more spread out. But if you have it kicked into the middle of the pack or brought into the middle of the pack, line of sighted into the middle of the pack, and then it doesn't die first, it can be hard to move it out for Sanguine. So ideally, everything dies all at once and it's fine, but otherwise, you probably want to kill the casters or the archers first rather than last in the pulls if you can, or have knockback effects ready for when other stuff starts dying to just get the casters or the archers out of the gunk. Some dungeons are worse about this than others. Knockit in particular. This is a dungeon where there's some just awful trash at this. The longbows, the horn sounders, those mobs just love to just stand and shoot you and not move, so those are mobs that you're going to want, knockbacks, grips out of Sanguine, or just make sure you kill them first, right? If you're a DPS player in these groups, you can often, just by choosing to target them as your primary target, you can actually make this a lot easier because it is much easier if the longbow dies first rather than a Beastmaster or a War Spear under them, and then they start Sanguine healing, and then you need somebody to quickly react with a knock or something, or maybe you just full heal the stupid thing. So, yeah. It's not the most ideal week for Keystone pushing, but at this point in the season, there are not many Tyrannical weeks left if you are looking for a certain amount of score. So your options are either this week, Spiteful Quaking in 2 weeks, which is probably better for the high key push, or Bolstering Volcanic in 2 weeks after that, which is probably still going to be in this season, but it may not even be. There's very little chance we make it to Bursting Grievous, in my opinion. Maybe we do if the season goes on a little bit longer than everybody's expecting, but I think that chance is very low. So realistically, there's probably 3 Tyrannical weeks left, and this one is medium bad of those 3. But yeah, if you need some Tyrannical IO for whatever reason, then you're just going to have to stick it out this week. It's going to involve, if you have knockback effects, anything you can talent, obviously, that help you manipulate mobs. That is really, really valuable this week, especially. So absolutely look for opportunities to get value out of those sorts of things, and also look for, in your groups, be the explosive hero, and that will help you time keys as well. Also, if you are going to be pulling smaller this week, you might want to go even more towards a single target build rather than a usual M plus build. You know, if usually you would pull 2 packs at once, but this week you're going to only be pulling strictly 1 pack at a time around these affixes, then single target build will be even more valuable at saving you time. So, again, depending on the timer, depending on the key level you're at, that may or may not be something worth worrying about. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope it helps with your keys this week. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.